St. John AME. Isaiah 9 and 10. The bricks have fallen down, but we will rebuild with smooth stone. The sycamores have been cut down, but we will replace them with cedars. In March 2020, several violent tornadoes swept through the state of Tennessee. Nashville took a direct hit from an F3 storm with winds that moved at 130 miles per hour. The storm moved without discretion, leaving large parts of the city torn and battered, claiming the lives of 5 people who had no cause to worry just 24 hours before.
March 3rd will live forever and be, entrenched in my mind. That Sunday, in fact, I had just launched the vision for the year for St. John. It had to do with Jesus, the narrative in John, the 6th chapter, where Jesus is commissioning almost the disciples to find and resource food for the masses that had gathered while Jesus was preaching. And so I launched the vision for the church in the sermon on that Sunday, and I had wonderful fellowship, and I've gone home. And later that evening, there were some talk about storms, but really, nothing that I found alarming. Tuesday night, went to bed. I think it was raining, if I recall correctly. But then maybe around 11:50 is when the alarm on my phone went off. And I turned the TV on to local news, and there was this talk about a storm and damage, and there was somebody on the grounds in Germantown, which is in North Nashville, but not immediately in our community.
Cody, let's go to Cody Murphy live in Germantown. You get something new, Cody?
Yeah, Dan, so we're here. We're just kind of walking down the street here on 6th Avenue. We're now at the corner of 6th and Madison Street, and this is by far the worst damage that I've seen. Let me step out of the way, kind of give you the what you can see anyway. There
was substantial damage from the tornado, and I said, wow, that's not far from the church, but I haven't heard anything. No news is good news. They're not covering it on the news, so obviously our church hasn't been affected. It wasn't until about 12:35 when my phone rang. And it was one of the neighbors by the church, across the street from the church, and said, Pastor, I just want to call you and tell you that the church has sustained some damage. And I said, oh, okay. I'm thinking in my head, it's a blown out window, maybe a fallen tree. And the power was off. And so they tried to go and position their vehicle so that the headlights would shine on the church. And I said, I'm having a really hard time seeing, can you go to the front of the church? And they said, Pastor, you don't have a front of the church. And so my heart sank. And again, I'm hearing all this coverage on the news about some streets being impassable. And so I said, well, I'm on my way. And they offered to come and get me. And I said, oh, no, I just don't know how long it's going to take me, but I'm on my way. So I, again, got dressed, got in the car, made my way to the church, and couldn't park but maybe 2 blocks away. Again, the power's off. And as I get out of my car, it looks warlike. I've never served in a war zone, but it's dark, it's still raining, but there's debris everywhere. There are down power lines, there's shingles from roofs, there are siding and construction debris, and I'm just trying to make my way carefully with a barely lit flashlight to the church. And so I finally rounded the corner of Formosa and 21st, and when I got to the front of the church, could not believe the fact that there was no facade. If you know St. John, you know that we are known for its beautiful edifice, wood framing and white grandiose glass doors, almost marbled or stoned staircase in the beginning, and all the glass was blown out. What were wood frames had been lifted up and almost repositioned into the vestibule. There was stuff strewn all around, even some bricks that were displaced. And the neighbor who had called saw me standing there and came out of the house and held me as I just cried. I couldn't comprehend what I was seeing. My mind couldn't make sense of the fact that not even 48 hours before, we had all gathered in this place to worship. And now this building, this beautiful representative of God, this temple, was severely damaged. And so I just lost it. I mean, I lost it just from the sheer emotion of it all. I just sank into their arms, and they took me back to their house and brought me a towel, and they were so very sweet, had prayer with me, the pastor.
March 3rd was a devastating day. I got a call about 4:00 in the morning from one of my former members at St. John, who said, St. John is gone. Like, St. John is gone? What are you talking about? So I immediately jumped in my car and drove into the neighborhood where St. John was located to see what in the world was going on. Clearly, the devastation was everywhere. You could see debris everywhere. You could see houses torn down, trees broken. And I couldn't even drive all the way to where the church was. It just so happened that I called the current pastor, Reverend Lisa Hammonds, to see what was going on. And she told me she was on her way there.
It was probably around 4:00 when the phone started ringing, because people had started seeing it on Facebook or gotten calls from other people. And one of my colleagues and mentors in ministry, W. Anthony Sinkfield, called me. And I actually said, well, I've got to go back to the church. I'm going to swing by your church on my way because, I don't know that you can even come from where you are. And so I'll report to you what I find about your building. And he said, oh, no, I'm going with you. And he said, you don't need to go back by yourself. And I will always be grateful for that.
She and I met at a location and walked to where the building was. And it was crazy for us to walk there. There were power lines down. We probably shouldn't have been there. The road was wet. Everything was wet. We could have walked into but we had to see what was going on with St. John. And to see what once was no more, I don't have words. It was surreal. It was indescribable.
Upon returning at first light, it was worse than I had seen it, several hours before. Everywhere I looked, I saw something I hadn't previously seen that just kind of added to the weight of the loss. It is still difficult to find the words to articulate the gut-wrenching feeling in my stomach upon seeing that building. And if the outside of the building was devastating, it did not compare to what the inside looked like. A trustee and I went inside around 11:30 that morning, and glass, water, books, everything strewn in all of the rooms. But in the sanctuary, the roof had been peeled back like a sardine can. You could look up and see the blue sky with white clouds, as if nothing had happened and that it was perfectly natural to look this way. The steel framing of the roof had been distorted. the stained glass windows from the original edifice of the church that had been preserved, along with bricks from the first building, had fallen and were strewn all about. But surprisingly enough, in all of the destruction in the sanctuary, when you looked at the altar, we had a pulpit Bible, and it was not disturbed. The pulpit largely was not disturbed. The choir loft behind it largely not disturbed. It was almost as if the tornado came and it stopped just short of the altar and went on about its business. So I can't fully describe all of what that means and meant, and continues to pull on me. But yeah, it's been pretty devastating. And not only for me, every member that has called, despite the pictures that I took and distributed via email and social media, despite people's description of it, when they would drive by the church, as more and more of them did every day, all said the same thing. I wasn't prepared for it to look like this.
Many people worried about the building. I did not worry about the building.
And so on this day, we come and celebrate the St. John congregation, not the building. Because the building is temporal. Yes. The people will live on. Yes. The building is a useful tool. It has been a useful symbol. It's been a reminder to this community and to this congregation of just how faithful God has been.
The building that was lost in the tornado, while it has historic significance, its significance was because it was St. John's building, not because it was significant in and of itself. Upon hearing about St. John, my response was, first and foremost, is the pastor and are the members safe and secure?
I got over there like at the crack of dawn. And the pastor was already there. And I was just, I could not believe it. The tornado struck the morning of March the 3rd. Had it come in on March the 1st, we would have had probably 15 people in the church at the time it struck. So it was just purely by the grace of God that it happened after we had gotten our people out of there. But to see the damage done to the church was it was sickening. It's the kind of thing that gets in the pit of your stomach. Mother Nature is nothing to be toyed with. I mean, I looked at our church, but I also looked at some of the devastation around our church, immediately around our church, and then certainly a couple of blocks over. It's like, okay, the church is gone. What do we do now?
The brick that made St. John was the brick from their original building that was downtown. An eminent domain in the city of Nashville, when they decided to move the capital from Memphis to Nashville, then they exercised eminent domain and moved several African-American churches that were in the Capitol Hill area. And so what the St. John congregation did was they salvaged the brick from the old building and brought it over and put it into the building that ended up eventually getting devastated by the tornado. I dare say that there was a great sense of loss and a great sense of grieving.
From the very first day, it was important that I reminded them that we are the church, that the building certainly is significant to us. It's sentimental to us. It means so much to so many of us. And so while the church may be in ruins, we still remain. And the community in which we serve depend upon us to be able to continue to be the beacon of the hill for which we have been. And so that means that even without walls, even without a building, even without being able to worship in person, that it is important for us to still be relevant and present in the North Nashville community that we serve.
The tornado and COVID forced us to think differently and more creatively. I think, in my opinion, we've been able to reach more people in more ways without a physical structure in which to worship.
St. John already had in place some ministries where we served meals on Thursdays to people that had mobility challenges or that were sick and shut in. So without a beat, that ministry continued. They just started working from their own homes and their kitchens, assembling plates and being able to deliver those. At the time of the storm, we were about to conclude our 33rd year of participation in Room in the Inn.
Room in the Inn is basically a program that was started 30 plus, almost 40 years ago, probably 35 years ago, by Father Charles Strobel, a Catholic priest here in Nashville. And what the organization does is provides shelter, room and shelter, particularly for homeless persons during the winter months, the cold winter months, from the 1st of November through the end of March. And what happens are a number of churches provide a place, a shelter for homeless persons, men and women, to sleep overnight.
Without a physical building, you would think that we weren't able to continue that ministry. But contrary to popular belief, we did. We reached out to some of our sister churches who welcomed us to be able to come to their churches for the next couple of weeks and to continue our commitment to Room in the Inn. We partnered September of 2020 with United Way and were granted dollars to be able to pay rent, mortgage, and utilities to Nashville residents who were experiencing hardship because of COVID-19. Between September and December of 2020, we distributed some $450,000 worth of assistance to our community. And we were blessed enough in January to receive another $225,000 that we've just concluded in expending to our residents. The other program that's been great is that we entered into collaboration with New Covenant Christian Church, Disciples of Christ, and our North Nashville neighbors, and planted a community garden.
In the Isi Zulu language, the term Sawubona says, I see you. Community, we see you. We see you hurting. We see you as human. We see you as our family.
Good afternoon. My name is Jalen Bolden, and I'm actually the co-chair of the St. John Community Garden Committee. And so today we're very excited to have you all come out today to be a part of this moment.
Jalen's the star. I just go out there and I'm marvel. It was her idea, and I think it came up in a meeting. Folk were just talking about things that St. John could possibly do. She came up with the idea, and she really has been the provided the impetus for it. It's a good thing, period, but it's a wonderful thing, in my opinion, when someone so young takes that kind of interest and uses their energy to provide the impetus to get that going. She has been the spokesperson for it. She has been out there on a regular basis, just looking at it and asking questions and seeing what else might be done.
When the tornado hit St. John, I was very shocked. I couldn't believe it. There were pictures saying that it was gone. There was my mother would show me Facebook posts about it being on, even on the news. The segment that was done on the church, it still didn't feel real to me. At first, I felt very sad. I felt angry that this church was gone that meant so much to me and so many other people. But afterwards, I was able to understand that it happened for a reason. And because of the church going away, it allowed us to start the garden. So the church really did mark new beginnings for me.
St. John is an historic congregation that has maintained continuity of witness and service in the Nashville area and in the region for over 150 years. St. John is an interesting, evolving congregation that has a mixture of both new people to African Methodism and new people to Christianity, as well as some seasoned saints who can remember its prominent position when it was located near the capital of Tennessee, as well as its most recent site. So it is a place of tradition, and St. John is a place of new hope and new vision for an evolving new self.
Worshiping virtually hasn't really delayed what we do as far as trying to get back into the church. If anything, it has allowed us the opportunity to take a deep breath, to do the business of the church, to grieve, to deconsecrate the church, and to take our time in being able to plan that process. Then we went into a period of intentional fasting and praying, where we really sought God to see what is next. We then entered into a period of time when we could revision what we thought St. John was going to look like for such a time as this. So it was important for us to look at our vision, our values, and our mission going forward, so that as we began to discern what a new building looks like, right, that it will be in line with what it is we've said we want to do. And so we've been able to take our time, if anything, not seeing safer at home or not being able to worship in person protocols, as a blessing to be able to embrace the time afforded to us, to be able to make sure that our next steps are sure and not rushed or hurried.
The African Methodist people and African Americans in general have a tenacity and a resilience, as far as I'm concerned, greatly unlike any other people on the earth. The things that we've had to survive and overcome, the things that we've had to press through and make a life, even when there have been situations and circumstances trying to take that life or belittle that life or minimize that life. And St. John is a wonderful reflection of that. A congregation that was moved from its original location, had to do what it had to do to rebuild itself, has had many years of up days and many years of down days, and yet it has proven to be a surviving, thriving congregation, just like it will be behind this tornado and behind this devastation that they've experienced right now.
Some key takeaways are, number one, that we are in fact resilient, and that God has entrusted in us, despite difficulties and destruction, that we will rise again, that we will continue, and that we will persist in doing this work of the kingdom. That's the first one. The second one is that God has allowed us to go through some things, not only with the tornado, but also with COVID-19, that we might have a glimpse of what is before us. And so a lot of people are devastated and are trying to go back to where they once were. And St. John is in the awesome space of being able to look forward to what God yet has for us, right? And so that looks like no eyes being able to see, no ears being able to hear, no mind being able to comprehend the great things that God has in store for us. And we're trying to embrace that with our hearts and our minds, our spirits and our finances. We're trying to embrace what God has for us next, because we know it's going to be greater than anything we've already had. And what we've had has been pretty good. but God is ready to take us to another point. And so openness as well as resilience has been a takeaway. Trust and faith in God, absolutely a takeaway, and are key elements to allow us to see and to explore what next steps look like.
I think St. John is going to be stronger as a church as a result of the tornado, because the tornado has taken away something that could easily have been an idol in the hearts and minds of people.
Buildings are important symbols, and this service of deconsecration is an effort to show just how seriously we take it. That it is not just a construct of the mind that we just make up, but that there is an effectual sign of the presence of God in this place.
Having that taken away enables the congregation to focus on what makes St. John special as the mother church. And what makes St. John special as the mother church is not bricks from a previous building or stained glass windows. What makes St. John special is the witness that they render and the service they render in the Nashville community.
And so as we deconsecrate this structure and this property, we rededicate and reconsecrate the people of God who will gather and who will be known as St. John African Methodist Episcopal Church.
St. John has pledged to continue to be present and relevant in the community in which we serve, knowing that God has greater things in store for us, and we're excited about what that looks like. And we are committed to pressing on to see what the end is going to be.